Hey everyone, ready to dive into something, a topic that I think we can all relate to, but it's surprisingly complex.
Okay.
Today, we are going to try to figure out why we hurt the people that we love the most. You would think it'd be the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Like, the closer you are to someone, the more careful you would be not to cause them pain.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it?
It is.
We really crave that deep connection,
Yeah.
that feeling of being seen and understood. But being that close,
Yeah.
it also makes us vulnerable to more hurt.
Yeah, and it's like that saying, love hurts, but love itself isn't really the problem,
Right.
is it?
Yeah.
It's more like when you love someone, it sets the stage for all
Yeah.
of this complicated stuff to happen.
Exactly. And the article we are looking at today really gets into how complicated it is.
Okay.
It actually says that research shows that we are statistically more likely to be aggressive
Oh, wow.
towards the people that we are closest to.
Wow, that's really, I mean, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And also kind of scary. Like, shouldn't love kind of protect us from that?
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
It's true, though. There really is a weird disconnect sometimes between, like, what we want to do, because obviously everybody wants to be good to the people that they love.
Right, of course.
But then when you look at how things actually go in relationships, it's messy.
It is messy.
It's not always the same.
So how do we make sense of that? Like, what is going on in our heads that causes that?
That is the question, isn't it?
It is a big question.
It's a really important one, and this article has some really compelling answers. It's not about trying to make excuses for bad behavior,
Right.
but more about giving you the tools to be more self-aware, because that's the first step
Right.
toward having healthier, more loving relationships.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the first why that explains this love-hate paradox?
Well, let's start with unrealistic expectations.
Okay.
Often we put our loved ones up on a pedestal,
Right.
and we imagine that they should be able to know what we need or be this perfect person we have in our heads.
Right.
And nobody's perfect, so when they don't act like that, because they can't,
Right.
we end up feeling hurt and disappointed.
It's like we are setting ourselves up for disappointment from the very beginning by putting all that on our partner.
Yeah.
Rather than just seeing them for who they are.
Right. And the article actually talks about how this can even affect whether or not a marriage is successful.
Right.
When we only see our partners as who we want them to be,
Yeah.
it damages the relationship over time. It doesn't matter who they actually are anymore.
Right.
It's all about who we've decided they should be.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's say someone listening to this is like, oh my gosh, I think I do that.
Yeah.
What would be like a real life example of how that shows up in a relationship?
Imagine this.
Cool.
You get frustrated all the time because your partner doesn't plan romantic dates.
Okay.
You start to feel resentful, unloved, all of that. But have you actually sat down and talked to them about what you want? Have you straight up said, it would mean a lot to me if you would plan a date night sometimes?
That's a good point.
Or are you just expecting them to know what you're thinking?
Yeah, we put so much pressure on people to be mind readers.
I know, it's impossible.
It is impossible.
This isn't about blaming anybody,
Okay.
but just showing how we might be contributing to the hurt without realizing it.
Okay, so unrealistic expectations, check. What's another big reason we hurt the ones we love?
Well, the article talks about how much of an impact unresolved trauma can have,
Okay.
especially from when we were kids. Those really early experiences, especially the relationships we had with our family, determine what we think relationships are, our attachment styles, and how we interact with other people emotionally.
Yeah, we don't just come into relationships as a blank slate, do we?
Exactly. And again, this isn't about blaming anyone. It's just about understanding how our past can affect us now without even knowing it.
Right.
So, for example, someone who grew up with caregivers who weren't emotionally available might start acting like that in their relationships as adults.
Wow.
And they might not even realize that they are withdrawing or being distant.
It's like those early experiences are like blueprints in our minds about how relationships work.
Right.
Even if the blueprint is based on something that wasn't good.
Exactly. And once we become aware of those blueprints, we
Yeah.
can start to change them. But first, we have to know that they are there.
Okay, I like that. So we've got unrealistic expectations and past experiences. What else is going on here? What's another thing that contributes to this?
The article also says that communication breakdowns are a big problem. And I don't just mean arguing with each other. I mean the subtle ways that we do or don't express our needs and feelings to our partner.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Tell me more about these communication breakdowns.
So The article emphasizes that poor communication can often look like passive aggression,
Right.
which is really bad for relationships.
Okay.
It makes it really easy for people to misunderstand each other,
Yeah.
which leads to resentment and hurt feelings because no one is talking about what is actually going on.
Oh, yeah. Passive aggression. Everyone's done it, right? Like the silent treatment. We've all probably done that.
Yeah.
But is that really communicating how you feel, or are you hoping that the other person just figures it out?
Yes, it's avoiding the conversation,
Right.
but that has consequences.
Definitely.
Avoiding things like that really damages trust and intimacy over time.
It's like we think we are protecting ourselves or the relationship
Right.
by not saying anything, but really we are just making it worse.
Exactly. And a lot of times people communicate this way because they didn't have good examples of communication when they were growing up. They may not even realize that there are other healthier ways to tell their partner what they need
Right.
or deal with conflict.
So you've got unrealistic expectations, past experiences affecting us, and now communication breakdowns. This is already a lot.
Right.
Is there more?
There is more. The article also talks about insecure attachment styles.
Okay.
And this is related to those really early childhood bonds that we were talking about.
Right. Okay. Attachment styles. I find that really interesting, but it can also be kind of confusing. Can you break that down a little?
Of course. Basically, our experiences with the people who took care of us when we were little really impact our attachment style.
Okay.
And that affects how we look for love and feel secure
Right.
when we're adults. Someone with an anxious attachment style always needs their partner to reassure them.
Okay.
They might text all the time
Okay.
and get upset when they don't get a response right away,
Right.
or feel really insecure if their partner hangs out with friends.
So they are really afraid that people will leave them.
Exactly.
Lovely.
And while it's completely understandable to be afraid of that,
Yeah.
acting on that fear might actually push their partner away.
Oh, no.
And then that just makes them more afraid.
Wow. So someone with an anxious attachment style, even though they want to feel close to someone, might actually end up doing things that make the other person back away.
It's really sad.
It is really sad.
And it shows how these patterns, while coming from a good place, a need for connection,
Right.
can actually stop us from getting what we want.
Okay. So far we have unrealistic expectations, past experiences, communication breakdowns, and insecure attachment styles. What is the last piece of the puzzle?
Okay, so the last why that we are going to talk about is low self-esteem.
Okay.
When we don't think we deserve love or that we are good enough,
Right.
it can really damage our relationships.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
I think so too, unfortunately.
That feeling that you're not good enough can really mess up how you feel about yourself and how you connect with people.
You're right. The article talks about how low self-esteem can make people sabotage their relationships.
Oh, wow. How so?
Someone who doesn't think they are worthy might push away the people who love them
Oh, wow.
to prove that they aren't deserving of love.
So they would rather be the one to reject someone than be rejected.
Right.
Even if it means hurting the other person.
Yes, it's a way to protect themselves from
Yeah.
pain.
Right.
But most of the time, it just ends up hurting everyone more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like we are trying to protect ourselves,
Yeah.
but we're not doing a very good job of it.
Yeah.
Because we end up making it worse.
Right.
But I like how this article doesn't just tell us all the ways that we mess up. It gives us some hope.
Right.
Like it actually gives us advice
Yeah.
on what to do about it.
It's so important to understand these patterns.
Yeah.
But we can use what we learn to make things better. And that's where those takeaways from the article come in.
Okay.
They're like tools that we can use to have healthier, more loving relationships.
I like that. Okay, so what can we actually do if we want to stop this whole cycle of hurting the people that we love? Where do we even start?
The article really emphasizes how important self-awareness is.
Yep.
It's about paying attention to what's going on inside, like what triggers you
Right.
and how you usually act in your relationships.
So it's not just about understanding the stuff in our heads. It's about actually like looking at ourselves and thinking about our own experiences.
Right, like you have to ask yourself those questions.
Yeah.
That might be hard to think about. Like, what makes me act in a way I'm not proud of? When am I going to say or do something hurtful? Do I shut down when I am stressed out?
Oh, yeah.
Do I start criticizing people when I feel insecure?
That's a good point.
We need to really be honest with ourselves.
It's like we need to figure out our patterns, but we can't judge ourselves.
Right.
We just need to understand.
You got it. It's not about beating ourselves up
Yeah.
for the mistakes that we made, but looking at them with compassion and a willingness to learn from them so that we can move forward.
I love that.
Okay.
Okay, so once we have figured out what our patterns are,
Hmm.
what's next? Like, how do we actually change our behavior
Right.
and make things better in our relationships?
That's where communication comes in. And I don't just mean talking at your partner. I mean actually learning how to communicate in a clear, kind, and honest way.
Okay, yeah, that's huge. Everyone always says that communication is key,
Right.
but what does that actually mean, especially when we are feeling really emotional?
Okay, so one important thing is learning how to actually say what you need and how you're feeling
Yeah.
in a way that doesn't attack the other person.
Okay.
So instead of saying something like, "You never listen to me,"
Yeah.
which makes the other person defensive, try something like, "I feel unheard when," or "I need to feel listened to, and I'm not sure how to make that happen."
Yeah, that makes sense. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
we need to own our feelings and experiences
Right.
instead of just blaming the other person.
You got it.
Okay, what else?
It's important to actually listen to your partner when they are talking. And that means not thinking about what you're going to say next,
Right.
but actually trying to understand their perspective.
Yes, that's so important. I love that you said actively listen.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to hear what someone is saying, but actually trying to see things from their point of view,
Right.
even if we don't agree with them.
Right.
That's huge.
Exactly. It's about creating a space where you both feel safe,
Yeah.
heard, understood, and respected.
Okay, so we talked about self-awareness and communication.
Hmm.
Are there any other important takeaways from this article?
Yes, the article talked about how going to therapy can really help a lot of couples.
I think sometimes people don't want to talk about therapy,
Yeah.
but we need to normalize it. It's okay to ask for help, especially when it comes to relationships.
Exactly.
They can be so complicated.
Exactly. And therapy can help us work through those bigger problems that we've been talking about,
Oh.
like past trauma or attachment styles, or even just help us learn how to talk to each other better. It's like having a coach
Yeah,
to help you have a better relationship.
that's a good way to think about it. And even if one person doesn't think they need to go to therapy,
Yeah.
just having a partner who has done that work,
Right.
who's willing to look at their own issues, can be so helpful.
Of course, it shows that they're trying to grow and
Right.
that the relationship is important to them.
Absolutely. Something that really stuck with me from the article was this idea that love isn't just a feeling.
Yeah.
It's something that you do.
It's a verb. Yeah.
It's a verb, yeah. We have to choose to show up for the people we love.
That really resonated with me too. It's easy to think that love just happens,
Right.
but it really takes work.
Yeah.
And we have to decide that we are going to put in the effort.
It reminds me of that quote, love is not looking at each other, but looking outward together in the same direction.
Yeah.
We have to be on the same page about our goals and what's important to us
Yeah.
and be committed to facing challenges together.
And it's good to remember that showing love doesn't always mean doing something big.
Oh, that's a good point.
Often those little things make a big difference.
What do you mean?
So it's less about grand gestures and
Yeah.
more about the little stuff like
Mhm.
making your partner coffee in the morning or
Right.
sending a nice text during the day or even just putting down your phone and really listening when they're talking. Those little things show your partner you care,
Right.
and that builds a strong foundation over time.
You are so right. It's about making that choice every day to make the relationship a priority
All right.
and to nurture that connection.
Yeah.
It really is easy to get caught up in everything we have to do
Yeah.
and forget to just slow down and enjoy those little moments.
It's so true.
Yeah.
We get so focused on checking things off our to-do list
Yes.
that we forget what really matters.
I love how you said that love is a verb
Yeah.
because it reminds us that relationships need attention.
Yes.
We can't expect them to just be okay if we don't put in any effort.
It's like taking care of a garden, right?
Yes.
You have to water it and
Yeah.
pull out the weeds. Right.
And create the right environment
Yeah.
so that things can grow.
Speaking of things that grow, it made me think of something you said earlier
Okay.
about how when you love someone, it means you try to make them happy.
Right.
But we don't want people to get the wrong idea. Like, you have to give up everything to make someone else happy.
Right. It's not about that.
It's not about, like, becoming a different person.
Yeah, you have to take care of yourself too.
Right.
It's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between your own needs and doing things for your partner
Right.
in a way that feels right for both of you.
So how do we figure out what that balance looks like?
That's where it's important to look at yourself again and ask yourself some questions.
Okay.
Am I happy in this relationship? Am I ignoring my own needs?
Right.
Is my partner respecting my boundaries?
Yeah, we have to be honest with ourselves
Right.
and with our partners about what we are capable of giving.
You got it. And being honest with each other
Yeah.
and respecting each other is so important for a healthy relationship.
This deep dive has been amazing. We have talked about so much.
We really have. I feel like I've learned so much just talking about all this.
Me too. But before we wrap things up, I want to leave everyone with something to think about.
Okay, I like it. What is it?
What's one small, simple thing you can do today to show the people you love how much you care? It could be telling them how grateful you are for something they did, giving a real genuine compliment,
I love that.
or putting your phone down and really listening when they talk.
Those little things might not seem like much,
Right.
but they really do make a big difference over time.
Exactly. It's about remembering that love isn't just a feeling. We have to show it through our actions.
Yes.
And if we make that choice every day,
Yeah.
our relationships will be stronger and more fulfilling.
That's a beautiful thought to end on.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Thank